Hey everyone, how's it going? Thought I'd take a look at a transportation option today. This is the Cabela's Armor Xtreme, I think it's called, single rifle case. I've actually had this thing for probably about 2 or 3 years. I think closer to 3 years, so it's seen a lot of use, and I thought I'd just do a quick video on it. I've actually bought another hard case recently, not to replace this one, but it's something I'm going to use a little bit more, because there's a few flaws in this case that kind of irk me. That being said, though, it will still continue to see use, and they do make this case in a double rifle case, so a wider version with wheels, a shotgun case, which I think is a little bit shorter, and they have like some pistol cases and stuff. So this case is a reinforced polymer molded case that hinges with clasps. This particular one has 4 metal clasps, and it is quite a rugged and sturdy case, which I really like. It's fairly hefty, so it's not going to be your lightest carrying option. And to be honest, when I go to the range these days, I prefer to put my rifles in just a soft case because I'm not going to be throwing them around. But when I'm transporting them a little bit longer, or if I'm transporting my restricted guns here in Canada, they have to be in a locked case. I will use this. So it has one grab handle on the side here. I believe the double rifle case version will have handles on the side, but this one just has one in the middle. And standing it up here on the edge is the first thing that I don't particularly like about it, and it's the fact that when you put it down like this, it sits canted. So it sits slightly leaning towards the bottom half. I know a lot of cases do that, but this one I find does it too much. A lot of the times when I'm carrying this case around and I put it down, if the ground isn't perfectly level, and this is still like in buildings and stuff, it's not out on the dirt, this thing will just eventually just flop down and I'll hear it, which is not a huge deal because obviously the rifle is protected in the case, but it's just kind of annoying. So I wish they had built the feet so it stood a little bit more level. So going on to the clasps, they are actually quite nice. I think this is definitely one of the pros for this product. It's a pretty interesting design. So they have these spring-loaded handles that fold out of the way when you're not using them. And when you do want to use them, you just fold them up and you twist to unlock, which is pretty cool. As you twist them to loosen or unlock, it moves a little metal hook that in turn catches onto this lip on the top part of the lid. I think it actually works really nicely. It is a little bit slower to actuate than like the fast clips on Pelican cases and stuff, but I think they are quite secure, and I like the fact that they are all metal design. I've used these quite a few times now over the years, and they're still all rock solid, and yeah, they're pretty good. I like them. Opening up the case here, first actually I should note that there is a hole here for a lock on both sides. However, the thickness of the case makes it so you can't use a standard padlock. You have to use something with a little bit of an extended lock on it. The thickness of it, for anyone who may be interested that your lock has to clear, and I'll do this in inches, is 1 1/16 of an inch. So it's not going to fit your standard padlocks, which is kind of annoying. You have to buy something that's a little bit more deep in the length. And you'll also need 2 of them because if you just lock one side, it's not going to cut it in terms of security. So opening up the case, you do have some nice egg crate foam, which is actually my preference. Of course, having a dedicated foam for a specific rifle or something is going to be really secure, but then in that case you won't be able to use that foam for any other setup. So I like the egg crate foam because you can basically just put any rifle in it or anything in it and it will hold fairly well as long as you have enough pressure on it. And then on the top here it's just a solid piece of foam. And I've put many different rifles in this case, sometimes for quite an extended period of time. And as you can see, it hasn't left any sort of imprints or any sort of significant imprints into the top of the foam here. And the egg crate foam is still in relatively good condition for having seen constant use over 3 years. So the case does have a rubber seal that runs along the inside lip, and of course that's going to help with keeping moisture out as well as dirt and dust and stuff like that. The only downside of this, of course, is the fact that if you put a wet gun, if you've been shooting the rain and you put your gun in here and you close it and seal it, that moisture is not going to be able to escape either. So you really don't want to store your guns in a case like this because it will produce rust and stuff. So take them out of this case as soon as possible if they're wet and dry it all up. But this rubber seal, of course, will help in keeping the elements out of the case when you don't want it. So the hinges here are fairly robust. There's 4 of them along the case, and they do have a metal rod that runs in through them as an insert. So they are quite robust and they're smooth. You can see there is no hinge stop, so the lid here just goes until it hits something or it hits the maximum the hinge can rotate. Okay, so I have a rifle here to help demonstrate the one thing that I'm not particularly fond of when it comes to this hard case, and that's the fact that it's quite thin. So in this dimension here, I find it a little bit too thin, and I'm using this Mossberg MVP as demonstration because the turrets on this Viper HST scope are quite wide, and I combine that with the trigger guard, trigger lock, and the bolt knob. It makes for quite a wide package, and it lets me demonstrate why I find this hard case to be a little bit too thin sometimes. So if I were to put this rifle into the case as usual, it fits really nicely, of course, in terms of its width. It is tall enough for the gun. Maybe if you had a really big scope and a vertical target style pistol grip, it might be too thin, but I think 99% of your rifles are going to fit in here. But when I go to close it, you'll notice how much space of a gap it leaves with this scope. Again, this is a little bit of a wider scope that I'm using to demonstrate this, but it's not much wider than many other scopes out there. So you can see it leaves probably like a 2-inch gap, and then you got to overcome that by just pushing it down and then clasping it down, which isn't a huge deal because it's being surrounded by foam, so it's not going to damage anything. But when you go to close it, you kind of have to make sure you go straight down, because if the lid is kind of canted one way from the bottom, it won't close properly. So I'm going to go ahead and just close it now. I usually like to just get the clasps hooked on first, and then I'll kind of lock both of them down at the same time. So if I do this for clasps, the gun is now in the case and it is well protected, but I can very obviously see a bulge in the side of the case. So it's kind of pushing out on the bolt handle and the scope and stuff. So I find that this rifle case is not quite wide enough for my personal liking. Of course, it does sandwich the gun in there really tightly, which is a good thing, but yeah, you don't have to worry about it moving around or anything, but I think it could have used maybe another inch of width just to make it a little bit less of a tight fit. So you can see here, when I go to unclasp the case, it's just, you gotta push it down and undo the clasps, and then in terms of internal dimensions, you're looking at 11¼ inches wide, and in length it is almost exactly 52 inches. So it's quite long, wide enough for most guns. I just wish, again, it was a little bit thicker for some of those beefier scopes. So all in all, I think the Cabela's Armor Xtreme rifle case is a good product. I think if you can find it on sale, it is good value to protect your rifles if you're bringing them in some more harsher transportation methods. But I think some drawbacks would make me double think whether or not it's the best product for you, especially the width of it for certain scopes. I did buy another hard case, which is a Pelican product. I think I might do a quick video on as well. But that was the video on this Cabela's product. It's definitely not bad, it gets the job done, just wish it was a little bit wider. So thanks for watching.